I think how that showed up later in my life, and I'm thinking about this on the spot. So retrospectively analyzing my life, I'm the type of person that doesn't really feel the need to always verbalize my ambitions to everyone. I'm more of the person who I like to, okay, have a clear cut plan of what I want to do, and then I like to prove my competence through my actions. And so let's take my personal brand. I'm doing a podcast now and I have the YouTube channel. I think, I don't think I told anyone that I was planning on starting it, with the exception of you. And I think we had one conversation about it, but I've had that plan in my head for maybe 2 years. And I think it does stem back to that work you put in, because I always think about, okay, why do I need to share this with other people? Am I doing it for them? Am I starting a personal brand for them? No, I'm doing it for myself. And I think if you're truly doing something for yourself, you don't always feel the need to share it with other people. And there's nothing wrong with sharing it with other people, but I think it just came up naturally for me to, if I was in a discussion with someone and then they asked me, oh, what are you doing with your life now? I'd say, yeah, I'm starting a personal brand. But I wouldn't just start the conversation by throwing it out there for the vanity of starting a personal brand. And we could go down this whole other spiral of vanity and people starting their business, and the first thing they want to do is, set up their logo, set up their trademark, have a fancy office, and their business isn't even bringing in money. And so I think that was a really valuable skill, which I'm grateful for. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, looking from a psychology of sport perspective or lens, a statistic that I always find amazing, which I learned recently, is the top hockey players in Canada usually come from small towns, and they usually get into the sport at a later age. They don't. It's not. You would think, okay, who are the best hockey players? Okay, they must be the kids who their parents put them in a very strict early specialization into hockey at the age of 4. Just like, I don't know if this is just a stereotype of kids in China playing ping pong at like age 4 and doing it for 8 hours a day. So the statistic is saying no, it's actually the kids that grow up in small towns, the ones that discover that they have a lake in their neighborhood. They go with some friends and then they play, and then they fall in love with the sport, and then they play for hours and hours and hours and hours. And later, once they develop that passion for the sport, then they ask their parents, can you teach me? Can you send me to this school? I wanna become better at hockey. And it's those kids that truly know what they want. They're not doing the sport for the vanity. They're not doing the sport because they want the fame. And that's usually why kids will quit after 5 or 6 years of playing a sport. They'll realize they can't become the next Messi or Ronaldo, and they're not willing to put in the work that it takes to become an amazing athlete. And that's one of the distinguishing factors, which I find really, really fascinating.
That ties in very well with the with one of the principles of the future of education, which is we spoke about, which is that seed of interest, of self-interest, and not self of being interested in the topic first, and then the knowledge, you'll grab the knowledge rather than people trying to stuff it inside of you when you're not the one bringing that in. We call that self-constructed knowledge, and that's one of our principles at the school. What you spoke about earlier, the motivation, like this is a key and important topic, which is intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. And there's a great book by a guy called Daniel Pink called Drive. that is a small book that talks about this. How we're all born intrinsically motivated. There's no 1 year old that's exploring around them in order to get a BMW, or to they're exploring for the pleasure of exploring, for because it's an evolutionary impulse. It's a method of survival. It's interesting. And somewhere, somehow, some of us become extrinsically motivated, and some retain the intrinsic motivation, or some combination of the two. And sometimes we lose it and we get it back. I think I kind of fit more into that last bucket, like as I said, where the motivation was always the grades and the praise from the teachers, the ranking, this pride of I'm better than. So my pleasure comes from comparison rather than some sort of inner joy, and it's very temporary. It lasts only until the next ranking comes out. um, and so one of the principles of parenting and education is, how do you protect that intrinsic motivation to uh, keep it intrinsic, basically. And so we call it freedom from praise and punishment. You should do things for the pleasure of discovering them, and for the pleasure of experiencing the joy of success, of doing things well, not to get a bravo, to please these people who are very important to you. Obviously, your parents are so important. So getting this bravo, first of all, from your parents, turns into getting grades in school, how it looks to others, getting praise, and then eventually you come out of the system and you think, I'm done with the adults. I don't. I'm an adult now. It's not about what my parents want and what my. There are no teachers anymore. I'm independent, and then you're chasing the outcomes of success, not the journey. You're chasing the material outcomes. And so this car or this house, and really what you're doing without realizing it is you're trying now to please society. So it goes from pleasing your parents, pleasing teachers, maybe and parents, and then eventually we're running around as adults trying to please society. If I have these nice looking cars in my garage, the other neighbors will think that I am successful, and it's very shallow. It doesn't last. You have to keep going at it, and it's actually the wrong sport, he calls it. So you're trying to play basketball with a tennis racket. You're trying to find inner happiness by surrounding yourself with these external things, and that game, it's just impossible to win that game. As opposed to reconnecting with what intrinsically motivates you, doing what you love, and then the results come and you go, great, I'm really glad it's doing well financially. People realize that I'm adding value. Excellent. And I continue to add value, and then enjoy. But if the material things come and go, the passion of doing it remains.
Mm. Yeah, well said. I wanted to add something to the part I had said before. I also, on purpose, sometimes don't verbalize my ambitions because I want to prove to myself, or I want to prove to myself that I'm truly doing it for myself. And I think that's a good test. If you're truly motivated to do something and you can do it without having others around you knowing exactly like the reason why you're doing it, that could be a good indicator that you are doing it for yourself.